Is the story of Cinderella concealing an occult psychological blueprint for uniting opposite aspects of our psyche? Fairy tales at their best are portrayed as cute, feel-good stories for little kids, or sometimes boring, nonsensical bedtime stories to help them fall asleep quickly. And at their worst, they're hated for pushing patriarchal values, emphasizing distress and helpless women, and for creating unrealistic expectations within relationships, showcasing happily ever afters that last forever and ever and ever, as well as for glorifying feudalism. That one stings the most, I think. For many of us, there's something so magical about fairy tales. The way they weave together timeless simplicity and deeply layered meaning. Upon closer inspection, they carry a multitude of interpretations and meanings depending which lens you use to view them through. As Marie-Louise von Franz recommends, we're going to explore the story of Cinderella as though it's all taking place inside one mind, the same way that traditional dream interpretation is done, so that each character represents a different part of the total personality, and each place or thing will carry deeper associations and psychological meaning for the individual. Trigger warning, I'm also going to use a lot of Jungian terminology because I can't help it. I'm sorry. Be sure to check out the 1812 version of Brothers Grimm Cinderella. I recorded a version here if you want to check that out. I'll also put the link to the text in the description in case you'd rather read it. I highly recommend checking it out. It's quite a bit different than the original 1950s Disney version that we're most familiar with. It's a little darker. And there's blood. I don't show that in the Disney version. And of course, if you find any of this information interesting, consider subscribing to my channel. I would appreciate it so much. And hit the thumbs up button to share your enthusiasm for fairy tales with the algorithm. Now, let's get weird. We're going to begin with Cinderella herself, since she's the protagonist of the fairy tale. From a male's psyche, Cinderella represents what Jung called the anima, or the inner soul of the man. From a woman's psyche, she represents more of the ego or the totality of the feminine psyche, the consciousness that participates in the individuation process. The journey that she takes, going from the ashes all the way to claiming her rightful place beside the prince, symbolizes the journey or quest of individuation, where through enduring trials and engaging with the inner world, our most authentic identity is discovered and embraced. So right away, Cinderella is cast out of a life of naive comfort, and she descends down into the ashes, symbolized by her tattered and dirty appearance and her sleeping on the floor next to the hearth. This disheartening fall downward symbolizes the journey into the underworld and the confrontation with and integration of the shadow aspects throughout the individuation process. This phase is always the beginning, and it proves to be an inescapable step for personal transformation and growth. Living in the kitchen among the ashes, Cinderella embodies the experience of turning toward and facing and getting down and dirty and just dwelling within the darker, neglected, and repressed aspects of ourselves. It encompasses the vital suffering we all must endure to bring our own inner conflicts and forgotten qualities to consciousness. As Carl Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain, unfortunately. Onto the stepmother, who, despite her outwardly alluring appearance, is nothing but hateful and cruel towards Cinderella. She represents not only the external resistance, she's a great personification of the inner obstacles and the negative forces operating within the psyche that really challenge our growth during the individuation process. Her energy is often referred to as the witch in other folklore and mythology. She embodies the shadow aspects of control, envy, and suppression, acting as the antagonist who projects her own insecurities and desires for power onto Cinderella. The adversarial energies force the anima, or the feminine psyche, into situations where they must confront their own undervalued qualities and suppressed potential. So again, this theme of brutal but necessary for growth. The stepsisters are very similar to the stepmother in that they embody internal and external resistance. They embody a little bit more of the societal expectations and norms that can distort and suppress our true nature. those sneaky internal energies that affect our actions that we haven't quite looked directly at and questioned. They represent the competitive and superficial values imposed by society and our families. They reflect the parts of the self that have learned to conform to these external pressures at the cost of true authenticity. The stepsisters' harsh and judgmental actions throughout the story do an amazing job at illustrating the rivalry with and the rejection of the true self in favor of a false persona that might be technically more acceptable or advantageous in society. 3 different times, the stepsisters give Cinderella the task of sorting giant piles of seeds, peas, and lentils. The seeds themselves might represent beginnings and things planted into our subconscious mind throughout our formative years. The task of separating the good seeds from the bad symbolizes the importance of discernment and integration throughout the individuation process. We can't just intellectually know that something is true with our minds. As much as I wish, we have to put our knowledge to the test through action. So the meticulous task of sorting the seeds represents the need for us to differentiate between the valuable aspects and the worthless aspects of our internal framework. It might look something like closely examining and distinguishing between constructive and destructive thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. How does this thought make me feel? Does this action represent my own values? Or does it represent the values of my family and culture? Is this useful? It reflects the arduous inner work required to sift through your own mountains of personal experiences, emotions, traits, keeping what contributes to growth, and discarding the things that prevent it. The pigeons swoop in as soon as Cinderella is given the task of sorting the seeds. The birds themselves represent nature. They appear when Cinderella is consumed with hopelessness, acting as gentle, loving messengers, pointing out Cinderella's inherent inner wisdom and her divine intuition. They symbolize the unseen help each of us receives during personal growth and self-discovery. Our intuition acts as mediator between our conscious mind and the vast supportive energies of our unconscious, aiding us in tasks that at first seem utterly impossible. So make sure that the shutters within your own mind are not closed off to the potential magical gifts from nature and the subtle push-pull of inner knowing. The 3 king's balls that take place represent the different stages of Cinderella's journey towards self-discovery. The number 3 shows up repeatedly and makes me think of the Holy Trinity: body, mind, spirit, beginning, middle, end, past, present, future, and it really emphasizes the underlying balance and rhythm found in nature. Each ball can be seen as a milestone that tests and reveals Cinderella's inner qualities. The first ball symbolizes the initial observation and awareness of our own worlds and actions, and fuels the desire to continue to grow. The second ball features a silver dress, which silver is associated with the moon, femininity, and the unconscious, representing Cinderella's initial feminine discovery and the exploration of her inner world. She also makes direct contact with the prince for the first time, symbolizing the budding connection between the self and the animus from the feminine perspective, and sparks recognition of her latent potential. The third ball features the gold dress. Now, gold is linked to the sun, the masculine driving force, and the illumination of consciousness, symbolizing a balanced transformation to a higher state of being. The transition from silver to gold reflects the integration of and the appreciation for both states of being. In the story, both sisters attempt to deceive the prince by cutting off parts of their feet to force them into the golden slipper. Cinderella, however, effortlessly slides the golden slipper onto her foot. This scene represents the idea that true identity is unique, and it cannot be altered or mimicked to fit societal expectations or norms, and it underscores the importance of being true to yourself. The act of the stepsisters literally mutilating their physical body in an attempt to fit the slipper demonstrates the lengths to which individuals might go to conform to external ideals at the unfortunate expense of their integrity. The prince's determination to find the true owner of the slipper highlights the theme of seeking and recognizing the true inner essence of yourself beyond superficial appearances. The slipper serves as a token of recognition and union, symbolizing that genuine self-love and connection are based on the acknowledgement of the deepest complete self. The long-awaited happily ever after moment between Cinderella and her Prince Charming beautifully symbolizes the entire goal of the individuation process. Their union signifies the harmonious balance between the masculine and feminine principles within the psyche, leading to a complete, balanced, and loved self. The true you, the true me. Ah. So after living through and overcoming all of the trials and hardships, she achieves an undeniable, unified sense of identity and purpose. Sounds great. Take a little bit of that. I personally think that Cinderella is such an informative fairy tale for aiding literally anyone in their quest towards wholeness. When Cinderella's story is viewed through the lens of symbolism, it shares a profound resonance with the mystical process of alchemy. Both narratives embark on transformative journeys that entail the transmutation of base into noble, mirroring the passage from darkness to illumination, from the ashes of despair to the pinnacle of self-realization. Cinderella's evolution from a downtrodden servant to a sovereign queen parallels the alchemical goal of turning lead into gold. The entirety of the journey symbolizes the profound internal shift from a dysregulated, fragmented state towards a state of harmonized unity. Her trials closely resemble the alchemical stages of calcination, dissolution, and coagulation. These stages are not mere obstacles, but are essential processes for anyone on the path to individuation, which can be compared to the alchemist's quest for the philosopher's stone. This stone, much like Cinderella's happily ever after, signifies the ultimate achievement of balance, harmony, and the realization of one's true essence. Which means that this story is so much more than a simple children's tale. It's an allegorical map of the soul's alchemical journey towards self-discovery and the quintessence of being. All this to say, it is meaningful as... May Cinderella's story inspire us to embark on our own path of individuation and maybe give a little meaning to the unavoidable, inescapable suffering and discomfort along the way. Until next time, stay weird, my friends.